legendary Mr. Skin.
Dude, Mr. Skin.
MrSkin.com.
Skin, everybody.
Coast to coast, from Los Angeles, Chicago, and New York, it's the Mr. Skin Podcast with your hosts, Mr. Skin and Andrea Lowell. We want to hear from you. Call the show and leave us a voicemail at 484-SKIN-POD. Find all things Mr. Skin Podcast online at MrSkinPodcast.com.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Mr. Skin Podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Lowell, and of course, joined by the legendary Mr. Skin in Chicago. What's up, buddy?
Hey, Andrea, how are you?
I am doing fantastic. Woke up on the right side of the bed today.
Yeah, you're very chipper.
Yes, everything's going well. How's it going for you?
Real good. I was just looking at, just before I came on the air, I saw on Facebook you doing exercises and you had a little half ball thing where you did like a burpee type of thing. It was kind of sexy.
Oh, good. So
yes.
So you know what burpees is. That makes me happy. Yeah.
Yes.
Most people know me from Playboy TV or the special editions or, whipping my top off or on this movie or that or the other. But you know me personally, and I'm a certified personal trainer and a raw food nutritionist. So when I'm not here talking with you, I'm helping people get into really good shape. And so, yeah, I didn't record that video this morning, but I posted it this morning. And basically that little half ball you're referring to is called a Bosu ball. And they're really incredible because they throw off your stability, so they make all your little micro muscles work harder. And I think that doing Bosu ball exercises for a guy actually makes you better in bed. Because, if you're in missionary...
Hold on, I just saved that video from your thing.
Because if you're in missionary and you're kind of on top, you're almost holding a plank, right? But when you're holding onto a Bosu, it's so unstable, that's going to help your muscles be able to help you kind of move and twist and groove while you're getting down with a get down. So there's a lot of ways that exercise and sex actually go hand in hand. And the Bosu ball,
that thing's called the Bosu ball. Okay, so now I noticed it's blue. So do Bosu balls hurt more because they're blue when you do them, or if you use a different color, it isn't as painful?
I will tell you, I am not a proponent of any blue ball action except for the Bosu blue ball, and they do come in different colors now. But
I gotta say, the only blue balls in an Andrea home throughout history have been the Bosu balls, right?
Yes, Skin, because I would never, ever leave a guy hanging or do anything to make the nuts tender, because I am a giver and a lover and a pleaser, and I don't want anyone's nuts suffering on my behalf. So yeah, and if anyone's interested, if they want to look at my fitness Facebook, I guess they can go to Super Fit by Andrea, but that's a whole other side of me.
No, and it's really good. You are good. I've watched your stuff. I know your motto is more burpees, less herpes is your motto.
Well, it is now.
You could use that. Call the patent office, trademark that. Yeah, right.
You know what?
Okay.
That's really, really funny, because I am kind of like, I'm very much into burpees because I don't like to waste my time, and I don't want to be on a cardio machine for 45 minutes. So if I can do 3 sets of 10 burpees, I get the job done, in my opinion. So yeah, burpees, not herpes. I'm calling the patent office as soon as we get off this podcast.
Yeah.
Gonna register.
Explain what a burpee is real quick for those guys that don't know, that don't work out like you and I.
So a lot of people think that a burpee is named that because it's so hard. It makes you want to like gasp and burp and you're out of breath and all this stuff. But it was actually the term burpee is named after the guy who invented it. That's actually his last name. And it's a dynamic exercise where you do a push-up, you jump your feet into your hands, and then you jump straight up. So it's very dynamic, very explosive. It's full body. The core is engaged. You get the arms, the chest, even the quads. And then when you jump up into that explosion, you're doing like a lot of calorie expenditure. So you're really leaning the body out and sculpting it without bulking it. So it's a really good way to lose weight fast and effectively and not really change the shape of your body, just make your body tighter. So I'm a burpee whore. I love burpees.
I got to say, I've always, even since I was a kid, I always thought those were so hard.
They are.
Listen, if you do 1 or 2, not a big deal. But if you have to do 10 of them and then do another 10 of them, they're tough. And I always think if that really was the guy's name, could you imagine how tough he had to be at school to go through life? His last name is Burpee.
I mean, well, we already know it rhymes with herpes, so I'm sure he's heard it all.
Oh my God.
But yeah, I'm at the point now with my own fitness that I'll do 20 in a row as a warm up. So, yeah. So burpees are something that we should aim to always incorporate. And if you can't work out, if you can't go to the gym, just do some burpees. You can do 10 at the office. You can do 10 at home. If you can do 50 throughout the day, you don't need to go to the gym.
Yeah, no, for sure. Because it does everything. Cardio. You're getting a little, like a push-up thing.
Yeah.
Your legs are getting worked, the whole thing. Yeah, no, I agree. I always judge when you go to a trainer or something, anything that you hate to do is usually pretty good for you.
Absolutely.
You do them so much. So for you to knock out 30 or 40, not a huge deal. It's a great workout, but not a huge deal.
Yes.
But for someone that's never done these, try doing like 5 of them.
They're brutal.
And oh yeah, they're tough.
Yeah.
So, I wanted to ask you, how's your brackets going for the NCAA tournament?
Oh, I'm all on top of it. I know exactly who's in what. I have no idea.
No, I know. It's funny. Well, I was doing, so I do, radio shows all the time.
Yes.
And every Monday morning I go on the Paul Castronova show in Miami.
Okay.
And he was telling me this morning, so they did everyone does. Here at the Skin offices, we do brackets and everyone's having fun with it. And every office has their bracket pool. Well, one of the people that worked at with Paul, one of his producers on the show, his bracket among them on the show, he literally picked the final 4 teams. I said, "You're kidding me." He even picked South Carolina. How is that possible? And he said, "No." And the funny thing is, the pot there is like $90. But if he would have bet, this is a true story because they looked it up on the air.
Yeah.
If he would have put $100 on his bracket in Las Vegas, $100, and not even picking the winner, just the final 4 teams, he would have won. Guess how much he would have won? $750,000.
No.
Yes.
Oh
That's how hard
God.
it is to pick. That's how hard it is to pick the final 4, especially this year.
That's bananas.
I know. It's crazy.
Oh my God. So put yourself in his shoes. What would you be feeling right now if you were like, oh my God, I could have won big? I mean, is it pride?
Well,
is it regret?
The funny
is
thing
it sorrow?
is, here he is. He's obviously going to win the pool over at the office,
$90.
At the radio station. He's going to win $90. He's killing himself. Like, why didn't he? Well, but how would you know?
How would you ever know? So are you saying that we should always just bet in Vegas and always gamble just in case? Is that the message we're taking away here? Because that's kind of what I'm hearing.
Well, it's funny. CP, the EP, our executive producer, is from South Carolina and didn't even choose South Carolina to make it to the Final 4. So that's great.
Wow. Yeah. Well, that's insane.
Crazy.
So what's going on with the Wacket bracket?
Oh, well, you're going to go to the Wacket bracket on me, okay?
I
well,
mean, I know that wasn't what was going on.
No, it's fun. That was one of the things I wanted to talk to today.
Okay,
so
good.
We do it. We follow kind of pretty much the same as the NCAA tournament, except that we are down to our enticing 8. We're going to leave this up all week, and then when the Final 4 starts, when the games actually start Saturday, we'll go to our Final 4. So we've narrowed 64 of the hottest actresses who have been naked in our Wacket bracket down to the enticing 8. And remember when we started, I told you we had Alexandra Daddario as a 1 seed, Scarlett Johansson as a 1 seed, Salma Hayek, and Margot Robbie. Believe it or not, all 4 of them are still in the tournament, even though we've had a lot of pretty crazy upsets in this thing, but they're all still in it. But as we go during the week, and by the way, we've literally had hundreds of thousands of votes on this.
Awesome.
And it's fun to look at the comments section too. As a guy who owns websites, you don't usually want to look at your comment sections because it's usually people that just bitch and moan all the time. But in this case, the comments are really cool because guys are really into it, and there's tons of them there. But so example, like in Alexandra Daddario's bracket, it's down to just her and Emilia Clarke, who is the mother of dragons from Game of Thrones.
Right.
So that's it. And listen to this bracket. So this week, people can vote on Scarlett Johansson and 1 seed, or Anne Hathaway, a 2 seed, which is awesome. And and I said this before. What's cool about this, the way our guys did it, is we have these beautiful modeling shots of the actresses.
Oh, nice.
And if you just mouse over the beautiful modeling shot, you can see their best nude scene, which makes the voting fun, and it helps you to determine who you want to vote for. So it's all in the execution here at MrSkin.com. Our guys did a great job.
And you know what's so interesting about that matchup? It's like it's really going to come down to preference. Do you like big, huge, natural, voluptuous ScarJo boobs, or do you like big, huge, nip-tastic nips like Anne Hathaway has? So it's going to be interesting to see kind of where that public opinion lies. Is it size or is it nipple-tasticness?
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
what I'm seeing,
well, there's something for everyone, especially
Yeah.
throughout 64. But now as you get down the crunch time, it's going to be really interesting. And the other one is interesting is Salma Hayek, who's a 1 seed, is up against Eva Green.
Oh, I love her.
Yeah, a lot of guys love her.
Oh my
She was
God,
a Bond girl.
her.
She played Vesper Lynn in Quantum of Solace, and she's gorgeous. She
Yes,
also
she is.
did one of the great movies for nudity of all time, Dreamers, when she was like 19 or 20. And she's a French actress who, in that movie, showed it all. She was completely naked. It was awesome. But yeah, lots of guys love her. So it's Salma Hayek versus Eva Green. That's a big showdown. And then last but not least, and this will be interesting, Margot Robbie against Lena Esco, who you might not even know who Lena Esco is.
Remind me, because I know we've talked about her before.
Yeah, it's funny because there were a lot of guys, when I tell you about how people complain when you do what I do, because you got to eventually pick, when I do my Anatomy Awards or top 10 nude scenes, like I got to choose one out of all the nude scenes. So there were a lot of guys upset that Lena Esco didn't win Best Breast last year in our Anatomy Awards.
Mm-hmm.
And so she is from there's an MMA series called Kingdom that is a really cool show. Gosh, I can't even remember what network it is, but anyway, it's a really cool show. And she's been naked in that a number of times, and a couple other shows. And it's just one of those girls that she's gorgeous, incredible rack. And though she wasn't a high seed at all, she's just getting the votes and keeps moving along. So we'll see what happens. But it's Margot Robbie against Lena Esco. And it's kind of cool. I was thinking about this. So let's say you're an actress and there's 64 of the hottest babes. And these are all like, we went with more of the millennial babes, the girls that are from 2000 and on that are famous. I didn't use the girls from the 70s or
Right.
80s. These are like the go-to girls of today.
Right.
So think about this. This is just guys voting on your hotness and sexiness. And this is a great sample size. Out of the hundreds of thousands of people we had vote, you've made it down to the final 8. Lena Esco, it's not a household name.
Mm-hmm.
She's just a beautiful girl that's done some great nude scenes. And she's up against Margot Robbie now. And even if she doesn't win, she's got to feel like, God, out of all these big name celebrities, I'm down to I'm sure she really cares about
that would make
but
me so proud,
No, it's-
so happy. That would be something like I'd write home about. I'd be like, guess what, guys?
think
made
she
the
right.
enticing 8.
Yeah, I think she should, just because this is voting by real people.
This isn't like a
who's the
rigged
hottest,
award
sexiest-
show.
No,
There's no
this is a vote. We're just like
politicization
whoever.
going on.
Yeah, so could you imagine her email? Dear Mom, yeah, I am in the enticing 8 at MrSkin.com.
I'm amongst the best breasts in the industry.
yeah. So it's pretty cool. So we're down to the final 8 here, and you could vote all week, and then we'll have our final 4 over the weekend, just like the NCAAs. And I said this before, just for voting, you're eligible to win a 360 camera from Rigo Theta, and it's really a cool gift, and you get to look at all these nude scenes all for free. So, Andrea, it's quite a deal at MrSkin.com.
You always have the best little enticements. You give away the best stuff, and it's not only just fun to participate in all the things you do, all the voting, but you have great giveaways. So thanks for always being amazing to your followers and fans.
Thank you. But listen, the people here take a lot of pride in this stuff,
Yeah.
and when you, like I said, it's all about the execution. And when you see the love and attention that went into our Whack It bracket, and you see you could see the actual percentages of who won by who got what percentage of votes over the other actresses. It's really a well done game at MrSkin.com. So anyway, we're down to the final 8, final 4 this weekend, and then probably by next show I'll have the winners for you. I'm pretty sure. So,
awesome.
Yeah, it'll be fun. So anyway, that's the Whack It bracket at MrSkin.com, and you can come by anytime and check it out for free. Now, Andrea, let's get to the television stuff.
Let's do it.
Always a fun thing that I like to do on Mondays, because Sundays always has a ton of stuff. And I'll say this, it wasn't a super loaded Sunday night for nudity, but there was there's some crazy stuff I have to share with you.
Some standout moments.
Oh my God, I want to get your opinion on this. So Big Little Lies is a show that I've been talking to you about on HBO. They had their 6th episode Sunday night, and we're still waiting to see. Someone has died on the show, and they haven't revealed it yet. So there's kind of a big reveal coming up. And they're only doing 8 episodes. It has monster stars: Nicole Kidman, Reese Witherspoon, Shailene Woodley, Laura Dern. I mean, these are movie stars that are on a television show. And it's a really cool show about moms living in Monterey, California, most of them very, very wealthy, and they all have first graders and dealing with all the craziness that goes on with the parents and the kids and all that. But one of the storylines, and by the way, I should preface this by saying I'm bummed because Mrs. Skin and I have been watching this, but last night we were doing something else, not a good something else. We were doing something else that made it so that we couldn't watch the show. So I come into work today, and the scene happened that I'm going to talk about. And it doesn't, for me, it's not like a spoiler because it's not about the big murder scene. But
okay.
There was something that happened. I need your opinion on this. So,
I'm watching some sort of video clip here, and I need you to give me some backstory before I can even comment. Because
yes, well, let me fill in the audience on what happened last night. So yes. So anyway, so I get into work today, and the guys are like, "Oh my God, you guys see what happened?" So there's been a storyline on the show. So Nicole Kidman's she's gorgeous, number one. Number two, she's an attorney who has a very wealthy but very jealous husband. They have 2 little twin boys that are first graders, and he is like all 6 episodes he's had issues. They have great sex, but he also has a little problem with the hurting her, being aggressive. He's very jealous, and he's kind of crazy, basically. And it drives you nuts because she's so hot. He's physically abusive. It's not a good thing for her. Yes, it's not good. And mentally, the whole thing. So anyway, I think they're, from what I can gather, and I, again, haven't seen the episode, from what I can gather, they're getting dressed in their beautiful walk-in closet to go to an event for her. And of course, he comes on to her, and he's always trying this really sexy, crazy stuff. They've had sex in the shower where he went down on her. They've been in the kitchen. He banged her on the kitchen counter.
Yeah,
now
that was all
closet.
hot. Yes, I remember all those on MrSkin.com. Yeah.
So Nicole Kidman is there, and they're like almost out the door, and he decides he wants sex. So he literally whips out his cock, and it's this huge cock. Now, we've confirmed to MrSkin.com it's a prosthetic, and I'll get into why in a second. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, no doubt.
Which is going to bum me out because tonight when my wife and I watch it, she doesn't know this is coming. She's going to think he has a huge cock. I'm going to have to make sure she knows that's a prosthetic and not his real cock. So anyway, he whips out the cock, and she puts her hand on it, and it's getting hot and heavy, but she's like, listen, we got to go. I got to get to this thing. So he starts to get a little violent with her, and she picks up a tennis racket and whacks his cock, and they show it. You can see it. You have the gif of like his cock moving around. It's pretty funny. It's so big. It's almost like a joke, how big it is. So she whacks this thing. But in the gif that we have, you could see it shaking. He goes to his knees, and it's like she feels terrible. But what a crazy scene. This is wonderful.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Now, we talked earlier about blue balls and I would never want to hurt anything. Like when I see someone injure a penis, it makes me like, I'm very empathetic and I'm like, ow, no, don't do that. But it's so preposterous though, because it's so long and the fact that it's wiggling around, like we've all, smacked a hard penis before and it doesn't wiggle like that.
Oh yeah, we all, you. Yeah.
You have, you've smacked your own, I'm sure. And, but it's like
I've used it to smack.
Yes, exactly. And we know it doesn't wiggle like that. So we can just look at this and say, okay, we know that when a wiener's hard, it's not going to be shaking and flapping like that when it's hit. Right. But we're really inspecting this. I think to the average viewer who just see her hit it with a tennis racket, they might not even know it. But we also have seen Alexander's, wiener in other scenes and things. And we know unless he's a major grower, not a shower, things aren't just adding up,
Well, it's funny you say that. So I put a side-by-side pic for you, and anyone could go to MrSkinPodcast.com and see the fine efforts of our crack staff here.
Excellent work, guys.
We were looking at this morning in the chat room. We have an internal chat here at the office, and like some of the girls, the writers here were like, wait a second, we have full frontal Alexander Skarsgård when he was on True Blood, and you could tell for sure that's a prosthetic piece. By the way, how hard she hit it with the tennis racket, there's no way that's not a prosthetic penis.
Oh my God.
We back it up with photo evidence of him full frontal, showing, and you could see the difference in the real True Blood penis versus the prosthetic.
The real True Blood penis. You know what I'll say though? And I alluded to this a little second ago. Some guys are growers, not showers. So obviously this is a prosthetic, but that doesn't mean that his flaccid wiener from the True Blood is not a reflection of how big it could get.
Yeah, and I'm not saying he's a small guy from the True Blood. I'm just saying that the enormity of the Big Little Lies penis, it just can't be.
It can't be.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. But I give him a lot of credit because even when you have a fake wiener on, people are going to be talking about your junk like we are. I give him credit for allowing people to kind of talk about his junk and potentially look at his old stuff from True Blood and be like, we're doing side by sides right now.
Listen, those pictures were from Mr. Man. We had to pull them out of the Mr. Man website. But here's a good tidbit. This Alexander Skarsgård is married to Maggie Gyllenhaal in real life, and she's in the Mr. Skin Hall of Fame secretary, a bunch of different movies.
Wow, I did not know that. Okay.
Oh yeah, and she has HBO has an upcoming series called The Deuce, and it's she supposedly plays a 70s Times Square hooker turned porn star in the early days of adult films.
Excellent.
And so we're expecting some more great nudity from her, but pretty cool. Husband and wife have done some really good stuff, sexy stuff, nude stuff, and is it Peter Skarsgård or Alexander Skarsgård she's married to?
I think it's Peter actually, because I was like, Alexander is married to Maggie Gyllenhaal? Really?
I got my Skarsgårds messed up. So my fault.
Oh, well.
You know how I am.
You're allowed to make one mistake once.
Well, no. When it's a female, I'm on it. When it's a guy, I'm like everyone else. I fuck up. So not a problem. Not a problem. I thought it was CP as I was talking to you said, no, idiot. It's Peter Skarsgård, not Alexander Skarsgård. So scratch that. Maggie Gyllenhaal's still hot, and it never hurts to be able to talk, and there's no relation. But hey, they're all Dutch, so whatever. Anyway, so Big Little Lies, I'm not giving much away other than an awesome, maybe the greatest
dick slap
maybe the greatest dick slap in television history from Sunday night, season 1, episode 6 of Big Little Lies.
I mean, that's incredible. I don't know that I've ever in the history of TV or cinema ever seen a dick being hit by a tennis racket. This might be a standalone, like forever in history type of thing.
Right. Normally if something cool happens, I'll say to the guys, hey, make a playlist of the greatest lip slips or something.
We want
this one is like, make a playlist of dick slaps with a tennis racket. That'll be tough to do. It'll just be a one video playlist.
I mean, dick slaps could be cool, like, the face or the boob or the something, and then this could be like that grand finale and then the final dick slap.
Yeah. You never know. You never know. We'll do a dick slap playlist, and we don't have to limit it to just tennis rackets. So anyway, that's Big Little Lies. Now, I also wanted to mention, so my wife and I have been talking because Big Little Lies is wrapping up. We only have 3 episodes left. We didn't see episode 6, but we're looking for new shows. And one of the ones I've always seen, but I never watched was Billions with Paul Giamatti and Damian Lewis.
Yeah, I was kind of watching
it.
It's on Showtime.
I'm
like, I like it. I don't like it.
Well, we're going to give it a try.
Okay.
They're in their 2nd season, 6th episode on Showtime. And last night, Malin Akerman, who plays Damian Lewis's wife, showed a little left boob in bed. And what was surprising to me is they're 6 episodes into the 2nd season. It was the first nude scene on Billions, which was kind of surprising because their first season had a lot of good stuff, her and him in the pool and some other stuff. So we were a little surprised by that it's been 6 episodes. But as a show to check out, the show is about Paul Giamatti's a U.S. attorney going after this hedge fund king who's a little shady, played by Damian Lewis, and it's the battle between the two of them. And I know they've been renewed for a 3rd season, so that makes me hopeful too, because that means you don't want to get into a show and then they cancel it, so we're guaranteed 2 seasons plus now a 3rd. So now I think we're definitely going to start watching it. But anyway, there was a decent nude scene from Malin Akerman last night on Billions, but it was also the first nude scene of season 2, which was kind of weird.
And has she done? Did you say if this was her first nude scene ever?
Oh no, she's the girl in Harold and Kumar. Go to White Castle. She was topless.
That's right.
She was in the Watchmen. She's been in a lot, and she's really a beautiful, beautiful girl, and kind of like a Norwegian-y look, to her. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
She's obviously from somewhere over there, but she's a beautiful, beautiful blonde. And but she's done a lot of nudity. She's not afraid to get naked.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of hers. I just think she's got that girl next door / supermodel look, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, she has a very unique look.
Yeah.
So anyway, she was naked. And then one other TV thing I wanted to bring up. There's this British sitcom called Catastrophe.
Okay.
And they're in their 3rd season, and it has been renewed for a 4th season, which is awesome. And I know that the 1st and 2nd seasons you can get on, I'm pretty sure it's Amazon.
Okay.
Amazon has the 1st and 2nd season, but it's a very funny show. It's about this American guy who goes to work for like a week in the UK and he hooks up with this Irish girl played by Sharon Horgan, and they have awesome sex, and then he goes back to the States and she hits him up and says, I got pregnant.
Oh.
So the guy kind of drops everything and moves to the UK to be with this girl and raise the kid. Now, Sharon Horgan is interesting. That show Divorce on HBO with Sarah Jessica Parker?
Vaguely.
It's a show. She actually is the creator of that show, and I guess she's a creator of Catastrophe too. So she's pretty talented. Now, she hasn't got naked, but it's she has been in a lot of underwear. One of the last episodes, she was at the doctor's office and he had like his hands over her breast. So she's gotten really close. She's really intelligent,
like,
good actress.
Close. Come on, just show us. You're so close.
It's a real funny show, but I did want to play. So one of the Joey from our content department always hits me up when it's hot off the press. He was like, "You got to hear this clip. You got to hear this clip from Catastrophe this week because it's so Mr. Skin what the guy from the show when he's talking to Sharon Horgan describes. It's really good. So here, I'm going to play this clip for you and get your opinion.
Awesome.
How the fuck has Fergal managed to start another business?
Any idiot can start a business. You can start a business.
Businesses does what?
Business. Do you have any ideas?
Well, I do have an idea for an app.
Get out.
No, seriously. Listen, you know how a lot of women in porn don't have pubic hair? Mm-hmm. And then you know how the Terminator sees things with like grids and heat signatures? What if there was an app that did the same kind of thing, but only for bald pussies? And when it found a bald pussy, it put a nice, healthy bush on it. You could pick the style. Could be 70s bush or 1870s if you really want to. But, I mean, that's, detail. That's up to the user.
I'm being deadly serious now. That is a fucking brilliant idea. Devil's advocate, though, have you thought about the fact that one day your daughter might find out what you do for a living? Doesn't that worry you?
Am I worried that my daughter will find out that I'm a feminist innovator? No.
Yeah, the dude's name's Rob Delaney, by the way. And I got to tell you, it's a funny show, man. And I might have to add this one to my list. I've only seen a few episodes, but every time I did, I laughed, and I got to get caught up on it. But isn't that was a funny bit? And it's the same thing with me because I have daughters. I'm like, oh, shit.
I hear you. What's the name of that show?
It's called Catastrophe. It's a British show. And the first couple seasons you could get at Amazon. And it's been renewed for a 4th season. And the stars of the show are Sharon Horgan and Rob Delaney. And she's got that sweet Irish accent, which I think is sexy as hell.
So do I.
And yeah, so anyway, and any guy that could think of an app idea with, could think of an app idea about Harry Bush is a friend of mine. So,
and you know what's so
I guess
funny to me? Like when I watch shows like this, or not like this, but shows where they talk about, these ideas, these inventions, these app ideas. I'm like, are the writers that are coming up with these ideas actually going and making these apps and patenting them? Because they're always such good ideas that are in the writing of shows.
Yeah. It's a little, as I know, it's a little tough to. Some of the ideas I have for apps, it's a little tough dealing with Apple when anything that has to do with nudity.
That's
but
the
yeah,
truth. Yes,
it's a little tough. But I guess this guy, Rob Delaney's a famous Twitter comedian. He has a lot of followers and he's really funny. So it was probably his idea because he's that talented a writer also.
Very cool. Well, that's something to definitely check out, and we'll just hold on and wait for the nudity.
yeah. Just stay tuned. It's coming. But the show's called Catastrophe, and we're all over it here at MrSkin.com. Now, wanted to. Oh, Andrew, do I have a movie for you? It's so
lay it on me, Skin. Lay it on me.
Yeah, this is so up your alley. We found out about this. It's called Below Her Mouth, and it's coming to theaters, but I can't imagine many will be able to even play this because it's so NC-17. It's coming around April 28th. It's a Canadian movie, and all I could do is compare it to that famous Blue is the warmest color with Lea Seydoux and Adele Exarchopoulos, the greatest lesbian scene I've ever seen in a movie. Well, we've been watching the nude scenes from this here at the Skin offices. Of the, I think, an almost 2-hour movie, 30 minutes of it is straight sex and nudity.
What?
And it is so amazing. So anyway, there's 2 girls in the movie, Erica Linder, who's the blonde, and Natalie Krill, who is the brunette.
Okay.
And all I could tell you about this movie is there is incredible masturbation, strap-on action where the blonde Erica Linder is banging Natalie Krill, and even some ass fingering.
Oh!
And, oh my God, and look at the one picture in the middle of the grinding that's going
hot.
on. And then look at the masturbation in the tub, and the girls are beautiful. And another interesting thing I heard is that this one of the guys from our office was telling me that I think it was Joey, our content guy. He was saying that not only is this movie off the charts, but that the director was saying that the film's financed by Telefilm Canada and the OMDC, which means that it is government funded.
What?
So they're trying. Yes, the government is in Canada. Like, could you imagine that the government would ever do this in the U.S.? In Canada, they're trying to get a new generation of filmmaker and audiences that can go see this raw, uninhibited, passionate filmdom. And it's like, are you kidding me?
That makes no sense.
The fact
but I'll
that this
take
is
it.
government funded and it's so graphic,
dude,
it literally is. If anyone who knows that Blue is the warmest color that I've talked about
several times, it's incredible.
Forever since it came out a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
This is up there with that movie, and it'll be out on the 28th. We're already sneak previewing all the nude scenes, but it's really amazing. I think, it's like putting the O face in O Canada from the government. I'm really proud of that. And I just think it's so cool that this movie is funded by the government. It's just something neat about that.
I mean, that's a really cool kind of trivia fact, but I'm looking at these pictures, Skin, and I think what people really need to focus on is the sexiness. I'm getting really turned on looking at these pictures.
Yeah.
That bathtub scene. I mean, this is when I wish guys knew what this felt like, because
Yeah.
I imagine it must be like getting head or something, comparison wise. But this is like every female's first foray into climax is like the bathtub. And
because this is Natalie Krill. Natalie Krill's the brunette.
Oh,
so
my God.
describe what's going on in this bathtub scene.
She's basically positioned herself under the stream of water, and it's going right over the hoo-ha, and it's kind of like the water's eating her out, and she's riding it, she's grinding it. I mean, it's fucking hot. And the fact that they're showing it, they're not trying to, do camera trickery. It's actually happening. That's what makes it so hot. And then the scene where you talk about the grinding, I refer to that as tribbing, which is two girls going crotch to crotch. So fucking hot. Absolutely something dreams are made of. And I haven't even seen the ass fingering, but or the strap on action.
The ass fingering was awesome.
I mean, this just sounds amazing.
We were talking about how the lighting's beautiful.
It is so pretty.
There's a lot of well-lit scenes in the bedroom. And I just, we're really, so just say, here at MrSkin.com, Below Her Mouth is so on our radar. It's coming to theaters and VOD April 28th. We already have some sneak video that we have. We got our mitts on, but all over it. And I'll be talking a lot about this in the coming weeks. So just wanted to share that with you, Andrew. I thought it was very important.
Thank you.
That you saw that.
I appreciated it because that's my favorite stuff to watch anyway. So thank you.
Yeah. It's called Below Her Mouth. And so last but not least, I wanted to talk about a show that was very dear to me and a guy that was very dear to me, Chuck Barris, who died between the last podcast and this podcast.
Aww.
And I have to tell you, Andrew, this was probably my favorite television show of all time. It aired on NBC from 1976 to 1978, the summer of 78. And
Wait,
it was just
that's
when I was
It seemed like to me, like not having watched it, that it had such a huge legacy that it was on for a decade.
It's like The Honeymooners in that there's their original core shows, but then anything else you saw after that did not live up to this. Like there were syndicated versions and different hosts and different iterations of The Gong Show, but this is like the Gong Show with Chuck Barris and the main cast of judges like Juicy J.P. Morgan, Jamie Farr, Artie Johnson. That to me was like the go-to group of judges. But the Gong Show was something I was in like 7th grade, 8th grade when this was on television. And I remember we'd have baseball practice at 3:30 in the afternoon. This show would come on at 12 o'clock. We'd all go to baseball and all talk about all the cool things that were happening. It was just one of those shows that and then we taped the shows and I had all the episodes and loved it. I've still to this day laugh and smile every time I see something. I even posted on my Facebook when Chuck Barris died. I played a video of one of my favorite moments when Chuck Barris and Gene the Dancing Machine, when he came out and Chuck was just out of his mind as usual. And Andrew, you got he was just so crazy. Like there was an episode where, and I got to find this, and I think it was in the Gong Show movie. I could pull it up at some point. But so Chuck would when Gene would come out, he'd get so excited and he'd jump around and be crazy. And Gene was like this guy that he was working like a janitorial job at NBC or something, or on the set or around the set, and he was this older heavy black guy, and he was like a stagehand or something, and he would come out and they'd play that dun 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 dun. They played this jazz song, and Gene would just dance. It was this,
that's so cool.
Yeah, it was a jazz piece, and Gene would come out and dance, and Chuck would go nuts. And there were many times that it happened, but where Chuck would go nuts. But there was one time in particular where Chuck was so out of his mind dancing around that he tripped. He fell into the curtain, the stage curtain, and pulled the whole thing down on top of him. And it was awesome. But the energy and the fun, and there was a lot of famous people that were on the show, like David Letterman was a judge early in his career. I know Richard Dawson was, even Steve Garvey, the baseball player, Rex Reed. They had a ton of things, and all you would ever win being on the show was $516. As Chuck would say, 516 big ones and 32 little ones. And then they have this little former munchkin from Wizard of Oz, Jerry Marin, come out and throw confetti around. And it was just a great, great fun show. And I was so bummed when Chuck died that I posted that thing on Facebook. But I wanted for the podcast. And I should think one thing about that 5/16/32. Supposedly, that was like minimum scale check for an actor for television or movies or something like that. So, as a joke, they made the award $516.32 to whoever had the highest score at the of the talent for that episode.
Got you. Okay, cool.
Well, what was funny that I remember reading something, I think it was Milton DeLugg, who was the band leader. He said that there was a bunch of prostitutes from LA that during the day would show up and try to do some talent out on stage because they'd have in like a minute and a half's work could make more money than they could at a whole night of prostitution.
Well, yeah.
And so it was crazy. You had these crazy acts and things on the show, and not to get into a whole Gong Show thing, but there was just wild, a lot of different acts, famous acts. Or Pee Wee Herman, as an example, was on that show before he was famous.
Are you serious? I'm like the biggest Pee Wee fan ever.
Yeah, it's funny to see him because he wasn't Pee Wee.
He was Rubens.
Paul Rubens as doing some crazy comedy stuff, and a lot of I think Oingo Boingo got their start on there, but. In no way am I saying I liked it because of the talent. I liked it because of Chuck and the cast and all that. But for the podcast, I did want to do a quick thing on the naked girls of the Gong Show.
Ooh, and yes, please.
You would appreciate this, Andrea, because you remind me of J.P. Morgan, because she was the main female judge for the show, and Chuck would call her Juicy JP Morgan, and she was so dirty, but it was on at like around noon or 12:30 or 1 o'clock depending where you live.
So was it all
NBC,
like double entendres and
everything? Oh my god, yeah. And she was like a former cabaret singer, and she wasn't real famous, but she became famous because of the show, and she just had this dirtiness about her, but was able to somehow get it across on network television in the middle of the day. And there was an episode, and I guess the powers that be at NBC went nuts when this happened, but it was during a Gene the Dancing Machine, and she just stood up and was so into it, she started taking off her clothes. And she flashed her titties. She flashed her titties on NBC. They totally, on tape delay, it never made it on air, except when the Gong Show movie came out in 1980, they actually showed it, the outtake from that show that never made it on television. So we have that at MrSkin.com. Yeah,
and
it's really fun to watch. Yeah, we have it from the Gong Show movie at our website. But that's like that's like the holy grail moment when J.P. Morgan
rips her titties out. That's amazing.
But think about it. It was like in 1970, I'd probably say 1978. It was 1978. Middle of the day on NBC, and she's flashing titties.
That's
it was
crazy.
Unheard
of. If that were to happen today, you know how many fines and people will get fired, and there'd be like internet backlash. I mean, but the fact that she enjoys her job so much that was kind of her natural default. Hey, I'm happy. I'm going to rip my titties out. That to me shows like I love her. And
yeah, it was cool. Yeah, it was cool. And I mentioned the Gong Show movie. It was kind of like
so cool.
Chuck's fantasy about his life, and then mostly was actual outtakes and backstage footage of the show. So if you're a fan, the Gong Show movie was great. It got panned. It did terrible. I don't even think they've ever even released it on Blu-ray or no, it was never released on DVD for sure. But then I guess last year someone released it on Blu-ray, and that's cool. But for many, many years, you couldn't barely see that movie. I used to have a Gong Show movie poster at the Mr. Skin offices. I don't know where it went, but it was somewhere around here, and it is finally out on Blu-ray. But it's a cool movie, especially if you're a Gong Show fan, which I am. And I don't know if for your average fan of television would appreciate it, but I really did. But a couple other things I did want to mention: the naked girls from the Gong Show. Just give me an idea. So Chuck's assistant, or one of the kind of girls that would announce every once in a while, was Carol Connors, and you would know her. She played the nurse in Deep Throat.
What?
So and she's also the mother of Thora Birch, by the way. But Carol Connors, for a while, you'd be watching The Gong Show. Now, keep this in mind. In the middle of the day on NBC, the girl that was announcing, like, hey, the opening of The Gong Show, she'd stand there in front of the camera, was Carol Connors, who was blowing guys a couple years before in Deep Throat, the movie, like one of the greatest.
This is baffling to me. Like, as someone who works in Hollywood, like that would never happen. Like, you can't be doing porn and then do mainstream, daytime TV at the same.
At
it's
least
crazy.
You'd be called out about it today, and just back then you weren't.
That's
It
nuts.
just wasn't. I know it's crazy.
I mean, I love it, but it's nuts.
Yeah,
like it just makes no sense to me.
Yeah, and she was actually still doing porn at the time, which is crazy. She was in those Candy movies. She was Candy.
What?
And I know she was. So he somehow got a porn star to do announcing for the show. That, again, I want to stress, was having they'd have Tide was a sponsor. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like, they'd have real sponsors, like soap opera sponsors during the middle. It was crazy.
And she's Thora Birch's mom.
I know, and she's Thora Birch's mom,
woman
who's the
is
girl.
Fascinating.
Yeah, we're big fans of her at MrSkin.com.
Cool.
Also, Kit Natavidad, when they did she was the girl, the monster boobed Russ Meyer girl. She was in a bunch of his movies, and when they did the Gong Show movie, they showed her audition footage, just dancing around in just a bikini. It was pretty hot, but she's been naked a ton. She was part of the Gong Show from the Gong Show movie. Here's an interesting thing too. I was mentioning some famous people that were guests that at the time weren't famous, but went on the Gong Show. Mary Whittingham, who eventually was nominated for an Oscar for the movie Georgia in 1995, she went up to do a Beatles song called Here, There, and Everywhere, and she was a contestant on the Gong Show, which is crazy. Now, she did a movie, little trivia, of course, you wonder, has she ever been naked? Mm-hmm. She did a movie with Paul Simon called One Trick Pony in 1980, where you see her topless in the bathtub with Paul Simon. So she was on the show, but I wanted to point out to you the greatest moment in Gong Show history and why the Gong Show is my favorite show of all time.
Okay.
It's a little guest spot from the Popsicle Twins. Now, they weren't known as the Popsicle Twins when they came out. Their bit was, have you got a nickel? So Chuck comes out and goes, we got these two girls who were teenagers at the time. If I had to guess, they were 16 or 17. I think somewhere out there we have their ages, but they were like 16 or 17, maybe 18.
Yeah, the one on the right looks 18 to me.
Yeah, they come out on stage and they had popsicles. They just sit down and start licking the popsicles. That was their whole act. And you had Jamie Farr, JP Morgan, and Phyllis Diller were they think. Phyllis Diller was horrified. And literally it went all the way to the end. Nobody gonged them. And they made it all the way to the end. Now, this aired in New York on the East Coast, but as it kind of was supposed to air in the Midwest and then the West Coast, the NBC pulled this thing. So this is legendary.
This is crazy.
They played it in the Gong Show movie, and you could watch it.
Oh, I'm watching it.
Yeah. And it was they were blowing the popsicles. There was no mistaking it. And isn't this incredible? Now, this is what I'm saying. This was on, think about this
makes no sense.
In New York on NBC in the middle of the day.
This would never happen today. This is so crazy. This is like the glory era of the golden era of television. I mean, this is incredible. And it's so funny because when I first started watching this, and if anyone wants to see what we're talking about, MrSkinPodcast.com, we have links to all this stuff. I'm like, okay, they're eating a popsicle. Then they go to the girl on the right and she's giving the camera the fuck me eye. You know what I'm saying? The BJ eyes. I'm like, they're totally sucking some big sticks.
Yeah, I always wondered whatever happened to these girls. I tried to look online.
Of course
and I've
you
never.
did.
No, I would love to know who they were, what's the backstory to this. All I know is the bit. I don't know any of the backstory, who they were, whatever happened to them. I would love to know that.
We got to find out. We got to track them down and get them on the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Make it happen.
Well, they're known as the Popsicle Twins, and they're our dream podcast guests. So we'll see what happens. But
okay, taking a note.
Yeah, make a note of that. If anyone out there knows either of these girls, please reach us at MrSkin.com, and we would love to talk more. But what a cool bit. And when Chuck died last week, I saw a lot of posts about the Popsicle Twins, because this is. Yeah, because this is like
legendary.
This is a legendary Gong Show moment, and I think, to be honest, the show ended in the summer of probably in the summer of '78, and this happened in '78, I believe. And I think this was part of the reason. Like, I think eventually the NBC...
It was a contributing factor to the cord being pulled.
Yeah, because they were just getting... Chuck was just pushing, and he didn't give a shit.
Yeah.
And stuff like this. And then I remember the very last episode, and they knew it was going to be the last episode. They didn't do a big deal from the standpoint of saying this is our last episode.
Right.
But Chuck did a thing where he went out as a contestant, which was kind of cool, and he did the Johnny Paycheck song, Take This Job and Shove It, and which was so cool. So he was like in a country band, and he did like Take This Job and Shove It, and then he flipped off. He flipped off his bosses, and they oopsed it. You know, they didn't show it, like they just put a big oops over it. So that was his like fuck you to NBC for fucking with my show. I don't know I don't know enough about the details to say if how pissed he was, but he definitely did that in the very last episode of the Gong Show. So anyway, it was cool. But if you haven't seen the Popsicle Twins or don't know what I'm talking about, go to MrSkinPodcast.com, and we have that. We have JP Morgan flashing her titties on
you've got it all.
Thing. We got it all. We got all those girls I was just talking about. So anyway, so that's my Gong Show stuff. I'm going to miss the show, but some really cool stuff for people to look at MrSkinPodcast.com. Real quickly, Andrew, before we wrap up, I would be remiss if I didn't point out that this is a cool thing. I don't have enough time to get into detail about it, but there was a lot of hot girls before they were famous that were... Remember the dating game? Does that show ring a bell from the 60s?
Absolutely.
Yeah. It was a popular show in the late 60s, early 70s, and if you go on YouTube, which I was looking at early this morning, I was going to talk about this in detail, but don't really have enough time, but like Farrah Fawcett was a guest like in 1969 before she was famous. She went on the dating game, so these schlubs are like trying to figure out how they could date Farrah Fawcett. Like, who knew how famous she'd be? Suzanne Summers in the early 70s was on the show. Lindsay Wagner, the Bionic Woman.
What?
Yeah, and Sally Field they were all guests on the dating game, and you could see a lot of that stuff on YouTube, which is pretty cool. But I did want to mention, before we get out of here, one of my favorite game show kind of like skin moments of all time is, okay, so there was a show called Password.
Okay.
But then they had a game show called Password Plus with Alan Ludden. And this aired in the late 70s. And at the time, Deborah Lee Scott was pretty popular because she played Hotsy Totsy on Welcome Back, Kotter. And she's on Password Plus, and we'll put a picture up. She was Mary Hartman's sister on Mary Hartman. She was pretty well known. So she's on the game show Password Plus, and she's helping this woman. And it was the 70s, so no one's wearing a bra, but her front buttons of her shirt are wide open. She has no idea. And they're all excited. Her and this girl are trying to answer the password questions. And the whole time you're like, holy shit, I could see almost all of her breasts. Not quite nip, Andrea, but the whole shirt was open. She finally catches herself and is like, oh my God, and starts buttoning up her shirt, and Alan Ludden's like, whatever, but her whole boob was out. It's pretty incredible. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, anyway, so it was kind of cool. It's my favorite nip slip, or technically not a nip slip, but favorite boob exposure ever
Nice.
in a game show is from Password Plus, Deborah Lee Scott, Hotsy Totsy from Welcome Back, Kotter. And by the way, as a little trivia, she was the girl before she was famous in Dirty Harry in 1971 at the hour and 10-minute mark. She is completely nude in the scene. If you don't mind the fact that she's being pulled from a sewer, she's been killed and she's being pulled from a sewer. But anyway, she wasn't really dead, and it's still her completely nude. So if you want to see Hotsy Totsy from Welcome Back, Kotter, check her out in Dirty Harry at the hour and 10-minute mark. So anyway, Andrea, we've again had another great week of nudity, and I'm so happy I got to talk a little Gong Show because I'm very passionate about my Gong Show.
Apparently, and you know what? It was one of those things before my time, and I feel like I've learned so much about it. But not only that, I learned a lot this show. Not only did I teach you that burpees make you better in bed, but we learned
Yes.
together that hard dicks really don't jiggle when you swat them with a tennis racket. And that the Canadian government funded incredible masturbation, strap-on action, and ass fingering. That, I think, is the biggest lesson we learned today. Go Canada.
And the game shows I was watching when I was a kid had girls sucking on popsicles as though they were blowing them. So,
oh my God.
more burpees, less herpes is the slogan for today's show.
I love it. And on that note, we'll say goodbye. We'll see you guys next week and enjoy it. MrSkinPodcast.com.
This concludes another scintillating episode of the Mr. Skin Podcast. Subscribe to the Mr. Skin Podcast in iTunes and never miss a show. Thanks for listening.